and McLean. Deck Coach's Corner.
You're listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plymer.
For someone to explain.
Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Welcome to episode number 37 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plymer, and joining me today is Bernard Jackman. Bernard is the head coach at FC Grenoble in France and has been with the club in a variety of roles since 2012. During his time with the club, they've been promoted from Pro D2 to the top 14 to where they now have the fourth best attack in the league. Considering the club's available budget and access to national players, this is a considerable achievement. His professional playing career includes 9 caps with Ireland and 4 with Ireland A, along with stints with Leinster, Connacht and Sale. He played under coaches such as Declan Kidney, Warren Gatland, Michael Cheika, Gaffney, to name a few. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So welcome, Bernard.
Yeah, how you doing, Andy?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us.
No, I'm great. I'm a big fan of the show, so nice to be asked to be on.
Oh, awesome. That's humbling and very encouraging too, so thanks very much. So I went a bit into the backstory as a player and a coach. Can you go into a bit more details of your playing career, your coaching career?
Yeah, I think I'm never really leaving school. I wasn't one of those players destined to play representative rugby, and it kind of just stemmed out of my love for the game. I wanted to play club rugby while I was in university. I joined a club called Lansdowne, and just loved the old amateur ethos. And I suppose I started to develop a little bit later. I didn't go to one of the big boarding schools or private schools in Leinster. My school is Newbridge College, which has produced quite a few internationals. Jamie Heaslip's is the next pupil.
Right.
Guys like Jordan Murphy, Fionn Carr, etc. But we weren't a school who were with a strong chance of winning cups, and we didn't have many representative players at schoolboy level. So I went to university. I was studying international marketing and Japanese in Dublin City University. My plan was to go to Japan for my third year and do 6 months in college, 6 months in work. I'd hooked up with a rugby club over there to play a bit of rugby while I was in Tokyo, and rugby went professional in Ireland. And Warren Gatland had played against me, would you believe?
Oh wow!
He came to Ireland on an All Blacks tour and made a connection with a club in Galway called Galwegians. Took a sabbatical from teaching, was coaching at a club, player coach, and came off the bench against me in a club game in March because he was a hooker as well. And then when rugby went pro in June, he remembered me and he offered me a contract. So I kind of got into being a professional player by chance, but always was fascinated by coaching, and always felt that post playing I wanted to coach, whether that was professional level or at amateur level, or something that I felt was a really good thing to do, really rewarding. And I suppose I started to try and get those coaching hours up while I was a pro, and coached my first team, which was my local team, Tullow, which are famous for producing Sean O'Brien, the Irish back row.
Yeah.
I started coaching them when I was 23 and continued to coach other junior clubs, I suppose, Tuesday, Thursday nights. And they played on a Sunday generally at junior level in Ireland, which suited pro games generally were on Friday nights or Saturday. So I was able to get 3 days a week in with a local club or a junior club, and just started to prepare for the position I'm in now, which obviously I'm very fortunate. I'm being paid to do what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so quite a journey there, and early in that coaching process. What do you think were some of the biggest learnings that you took from transferring from a player to a coach?
I think it's really important to be able to adapt to the group that you have. So I was coming from Leinster sessions, during the day, being coached with Michael Cheika and David Knox, or Alan Gaffney and Mike Brewer, playing with guys like Brian Driscoll, Shane Horgan, Dennis Hickey, Felipe Contaponi.
Yeah.
And obviously getting great strategy, great technique, great drills, etc. But they're not applicable, to the guys who are working on a building site and coming to training at night. You have to be able to adapt your language, your content to the group in terms of their skill set, in terms of their body composition, in terms of their movement levels, the time you have with them. So I think that's been obviously a really good process, and just playing with the language you use and the cues you give and the imagery you try and give players to explain, and the level of detail. And as I said, detail you can go overboard as well. And I think I really enjoyed listening to Joe Schmidt, and he said when he came to Claremont from New Zealand, he had a huge amount of ideas and knowledge and information, but the reality was he couldn't speak French well enough. So he had to obviously try and just pick the most important things and give those players the most important cues, and that helped him kind of get rid of a lot of the waffle in his mind and his coaching. I think for me as well, I think that when you go into a meeting or when you're on the pitch, you got to be able to say, okay, well, what's the most important things that I can get across today or tonight that are going to have the biggest impact? And that's something that I try and always declutter, I suppose, the amount of things that I say, to make sure that we're trying to hit the points that will give us the most impact.
Yeah, that's great, and that's good advice too to coaches out there. We're all so passionate about the game. We all love what we're doing, but it's very tempting to overteach certain areas. So that's great. That's great advice. All right. So French club rugby, it's got a bit of a reputation of being pretty direct, pretty physical. There's some gigantic human beings running around in Pro 14, in the top 14. Sorry. How did that influence your approach when you started coaching at Grenoble in the early stages, especially as the early stages of your head coaching role there?
Yeah, I think when I came first, my role was defence. My first year was defence, and obviously I was part of a team that got promoted, and then obviously we were favourites to be relegated. As you go up a division, obviously you're dealing with more powerful athletes in terms of your opposition. When we got promoted, we did a small bit of recruitment, but in general, it was the group that got us up, which stayed up. And the advantage you have your first year is, in terms of passion and motivation. For guys who spend most of their career in Pro D2, watching Stade Francais or Toulouse on TV. When they get up there and get the chance to play against them, they generally play above themselves because every week is the biggest week of your career to date, and it's your chance to play against internationals. But what we have to make sure is that technically and tactically and I suppose physically as well, that we're bridging that gap. But we would have been focused on trying to stop the threat early. So in terms of my role as defence coach, we were very much a chop tackle team, and trying to bring a lot of detail into our work around the ball in defence, because if we let teams with better athletes and probably more talent than us play off quick ball, well then it was going to be always difficult. So we had a very basic, quite a closed game plan. I would have thought that we put a lot of focus on our kicking game. We didn't really take any risk in attack, and leave ourselves open to being hurt on turnover ball or counter-attack. But as I became head coach, I suppose I looked to try and become more creative, keep the ball for longer periods, and back our attack a little bit more, which has had really good results in terms of our attack, but probably has cost us a lot of points in terms of our defence as well, because we have been taking risks and we have been exploited on turnover ball, and also I think that we probably need to work on our conditioning as well, to make sure that we're able to play that high tempo type of footy that I want to play and that I probably would have grown up with, being coached by guys like by coaches like Michael Cheika or Jim Mallender, who I had when I was in Sale Sharks. So there's been a big push to try and improve our conditioning, our skills, and our technique all at the same time, which I think is going to be the ingredients we need to play that high tempo rugby, which I think works in France. I think that in France, as you said, a lot of the teams are focused on big is better, and certainly fitness levels are questionable in most of the clubs except for probably Clermont, and that's something that, you know, if we get right, I think we can really probably make up for the lack of budget, make up for the difference in terms of salaries.
Yeah, it's ironic that you spent some time with Connacht as well. It kind of sounds like a similar story that's going on there with the way they play and the challenges they have as well on the budgetary side of things.
Yeah, I think Connacht is a great example of everybody buying into Pat Lam's philosophy, and even when they're criticised and even when results don't go their way, they back themselves and back what they do week in, week out. And I think it's brilliant to see that. I think it's a harder challenge here because you have such a mix of backgrounds and philosophies. So you know, I came through the Irish system. 80% of the people, of the players in the Connacht dressing room, Leinster dressing room, Munster dressing room, or Ulster dressing room have a similar philosophy about how to play the game. Right. You come to France and you have a huge mix of nationalities and philosophies, and it's brilliant. It's a great challenge, and it makes it probably more enjoyable because you have to convince a Fijian and a guy from the Basque region or a Parisian that this is the best way to go forward. So you have to become a salesman, and you know that's good, because if you want to try and sell a philosophy or an idea, you need to understand it inside out, and you need to really believe in it, because when the questions come, you need to be able to convince, because players will suss out a little bit of doubt in a millisecond, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the ability, or the times when it's challenging, when you have to, I suppose, there's been a negative result, or there's been a few negative results, or questions are being posed, and you got to be able to, I suppose, reconvince them that this is the right way forward. And that's what being the best thing about coming to France for me, is just that getting out of dealing with probably people who all believe in the same way, and trying to build a project here that's unique to us, but you know is something that we can be proud of.
Yeah, so it sounds like having a rock solid team culture is really important in that process, and I've heard you talk about that before on Off the Ball. I think it was last year. What are some of the ways you've looked to set up that team culture and most importantly maintain it?
Look, I think that this is my first year as being head coach and director of rugby, so up till now I've been very much focused on I suppose the on-field stuff, whereas over the summer my director of rugby, he moved on, and probably for the last 3 or 4 seasons I've been pushing to the fact that we didn't really have a strong culture. It was very much based around when we were winning and playing well, everything was great, and then once we got a few bad results, I suppose the cracks started to appear. So in the preseason we worked a lot about trying to formalize that culture and what it means to be part of this group. Try to align that to the history that's happened in the past in the club and some of the teams that have gone before, but also trying to get guys to realize that we're fortunate enough to play in this club or to work for this club for a short period. Even the guys who can have 10 years here, it's still a short period in our lives. And what do we want to be remembered for, and what values and what beliefs are important to us, but for them to come up with that themselves, because as I said, I don't think I can go and spend a weekend thinking about what our culture should look like and then go in and present that as a given. I think it has to come and be agreed upon by everybody. And we did a lot of workshops. We spent a day a week during our preseason for 6 weeks, going through a process that led us to having a leadership group that was voted by the players, that was based on the people who corresponded the best in our group the values that the group agreed upon, and that's been great because we've had a very difficult season. We had financial issues in September where the players were asked to take a pay cut, and that created uncertainty in the group. It led to probably some of the richer clubs starting to attack our players who were under contract but had clauses. And if we hadn't, we had a really big injury crisis early doors. We started the season with 22 players injured. Oh my God. Then we had suspensions, and we've had 6 games where we've lost by less than 5 points. So we've had a lot of blips. And honestly, I can say that if we hadn't spent so much time in trying to make sure that the group understand how we need to behave, what's acceptable in terms of attitudes and behaviors, we would have cracked, and we haven't cracked, and we're actually getting stronger as the season goes on. And I actually believe that we'll stay up this season, and that will be based a lot around our ability to stick together under pressure, and that's going to be something really exciting, because if we can stay up, we'll attack next season with real momentum and a much better group and a much more unified group. So it's been incredibly difficult, but it's been when we get the results that we deserve, I think it'll be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you just come off a win from Stade Francais. Is that right?
Yeah, we got a win last weekend. Against Stade Francais. We probably should have got in France. It's we scored 5 tries, but unfortunately we conceded 3. And in France, you have to
you got to win by 3. Yeah,
win by 3. So listen, as long as we win, we've 9 games left, 5 at home. We already have 6 bonus points. It's about getting those W's, and I think we got a lot of confidence from it, particularly the manner in which we won the game. We manned up front. We were very strong at set piece. We implemented our kicking strategy to a T, and we were very dominant in the collision. So they're the things we're going to need, because we play against six of the best teams at home, and if you don't have a strong set piece and confidence in your collision work against teams like Racing, Clermont, Toulon, it's incredibly difficult to win. So I'm very happy that in the areas that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've shown big improvement.
Oh, that's great. Okay, on to another topic, the new tackle laws. How have they been applied in the top 14? And what advice would you give coaches on areas they should be trying to address in their practice sessions? As a lot of clubs would be starting their pre-season now in Southern Hemisphere, and even some Northern Hemisphere teams. What would be some advice you'd give them?
I just think I think we need to work usually as coaches on our tackle technique, and I think that's something that is best done live. You can build up to it through different drills in terms of tracking and using tackle bags, but the reality is, I believe to get better tackle, you need to tackle. Now you don't have to do 15 on 15. I believe in whole part. So where you work a technique, you try and make it into you try and use it again or replicate it in a game like situation, and then if there is a lack of quality, then you go back to the original drill and you make sure people understand. But I think it's good for players to get a certain amount of live tackle work in each week, and then it's a case of getting that body height down. I think that, and also I think that the risk of going high, in terms of the effect it can have on a result, apart from the effect of safety, is it's a yellow card now, and we all know that teams concede on average of at Super Rugby level and top 14 level more than 6 points a game during those 10 minutes. So for me, it's the first thing starts with tackle technique, and then secondly it's that line integrity, because it's often not the primary tackler who gives away the penalty for the high tackle. It's often that catch up defender or the inside defender who is ducked under and has been corner flagging, and that's why he's in a poor position to get his body height down. So a huge amount of work on that line integrity, particularly from the inside, because it's often that late footwork that catches the tackler, and that's where he's prone to make that infringement. Whereas if you have really good confidence and really good communication, really good body shape on your inside defender in particular, and obviously your just defender, well then I think that with good tackle technique as part of your program, I see no reason why the new laws should really affect it. And it should be, maybe it's just the encouragement coaches need to put more time into perfecting the skill.
Yeah, I think so. And I honestly think, like, coming from a rugby league background in my junior days, I think any coach with a rugby league background's probably got an advantage there, because that's how you're taught to tackle in that game, especially the smaller blokes.
Yeah, massively. I've been lucky enough to have worked under a lot of league coaches or ex-league players who've come into the game, and I think that's been a huge advantage for rugby union, is their knowledge and their expertise of the tackle area. I think before, when I was learning to play the game, or probably when I was coaching at the start, we thought, doing a drill where you tackled sausage bags was a tackle technique drill or defense session. Whereas, if you look at the influence of rugby league coaches, and now rugby union coaches have started to analyse, what goes into being a good tackle technique. Now I think we've a lot more information on hand, and we're able to give players much better cues and much better detail around that area, and it's a key area of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And how's it been rolled out in the top 14?
I think the problem, it's been the problem in top 14 is that games are refereed with, often based on the reaction of the crowd, and so games in France can get away in you very quickly, particularly away from home, because the referees seem to be, and the touch judges seem to be, influenced by the crowd. So if you go high in France, it's sure it's going to be a yellow card, which is the nature of the law. But it's the effect after that. It's the fact that the team will probably kick to the corner maul, and it's very hard to stop a maul in France without infringing. That can lead to another penalty, and suddenly you can be really, 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 really struggling. So the worry for me is that, and it's part of something that happens in France because of the fact that the game is so full of emotion, is if players play act. I hope that doesn't come into the game, because it's something that the World Rugby and the French referees in the pre-season briefing said they're going to be really hard on players who simulate an injury, etc., from an active foul play or an accidental active foul play. I just think that high tackle, if teams want to buy a penalty late in the game, it's very easy for the ball carrier to dip and dive, and the tackle player might have had no intent. So I haven't seen much of that, but I would be afraid that as we go into the tail end of the season and games become even more pressurized because of the pressure for coaches and players to make top six or to not be relegated, I hope that a club's fate isn't decided by that, and I certainly hope the coaches aren't advising their players to do that.
Yeah, that would be a sad day, I think, and hopefully the integrity of rugby itself can withhold those kind of situations. Yeah. What about more positive opportunities as a result of a law change? Often when there's a law change, we see things open up in other areas of play. Do you see any areas that teams could attack based on the new tackle laws?
For sure. I think that if coaches are logical in their thought process, they're going to push their players to lower the body height of the tackle, because you don't want to take that risk. And a lowering of body height of tackle is going to open up opportunities to play on your feet, to offload in contact, and to use the fend more. And that'll help you, obviously, get that foot through contact. So I think that as coaches, if we're looking to adapt our content in terms of our weekly plan, I think we need to be looking at working the offload more, giving players better cues and better exercises, and working on the things that help you get through contact, which is footwork, obviously late, as I said, that leg drive and that use to defend, and then our support players, their running lines and awareness of, listen, he's getting his hands free, there's something on here, and getting excited and flooding through the area of the ball and looking to very much go up the guts then. So that's something that should hopefully arise if coaches adjust their defensive tactics well then for the attacking coaches, I think there will be more opportunities to offload.
Okay, great. Oh, that's great advice. All right, if someone was to come along and watch a session coached by you, what are some of the things they'd see and hear during that practice?
I think if it's match week, I think I would hate to see some of my session being dictated or being used up by stuff that wasn't relevant to that match. I think for me as a head coach of a top 14 club or a pro team, my content has got to be very related to the game we play that weekend. I think that for guys who are out of the group or at the end of the session when there's little skill blocks, that's when you can get into the development stuff. But in terms of the team time, collective sessions, well then it's got to be very focused on what we can work on that's going to help us win this weekend. So I'd like to think my sessions run logically from one area to the next, and as I said, there's that whole part where we get into definitely, and we do a lot of 15v15 or 15v13 or different scenarios, but the players get a chance before that to actually to work on the different mini parts that we're expected to execute, and we like to explain things. So we start every day with a briefing. And that's a quick debrief of the day the day we just went before, and then obviously what's important for the day ahead of us. But anything that we want to introduce or talk about at training that day, we'll bring that up in the briefing, and we'll speak about that in the classroom as such, to try and limit the time on our feet on the pitch, and to give the players the information they need so they can process that. They have time to come see me or the other coaches. We have an application that we publish all our detail on, so they have 2 or 3 hours before we get on the pitch to make sure they understand what's expected of them in terms of different roles and responsibilities, and then we got to just go and execute it. And obviously, there's going to be, for new things, it takes a while, and you have to be able to stop and explain. But we try and make sure, we're only on the pitch twice a week, generally for 50 minutes in terms of our team attack, team defense. So it has to be high energy, it has to be high tempo. And as I said, the gift we have and the opportunity we have is that we have lots of time off our feet where we can explain, teach, and make sure that everyone is aware of what's expected of them. And I think that I'd like to think that as well, that there's positive encouragement for things that are done well, but there's also acknowledgement of poor attitude and errors based around lack of knowledge or roles if it's been explained. I think that there's a skill deficit or there's lack of understanding because of a change at the last moment in terms of strategy. Then that's my fault or my coach's fault. But if there's a poor attitude or work rate, well then that's very much the player's fault.
All right, and your favourite part of the game to coach, what would that be, and what are some of the examples of activities or drills that you call on regularly?
I think it's bizarre. I started off as defence coach here because it was the opportunity that was here. It's certainly not something that I think about. When I'm lying in bed, I think I like defence, but I love attack, and I'm always trying to simulate what would stress the defence, and I've really enjoyed taking over responsibility for our team attack. I think that we've pretty good detail in place. I think that considering we don't have a great set piece statistically, and most people think that attack is down to buying in, I suppose, international players or gifted talent. I actually don't believe that. I think that your systems and your structures will create the opportunities. I think that's what Connacht have done. They haven't the best talent pool in Ireland or the Pro 12, but last year they managed to win the competition by having better detail than the others. So we spent a lot of time working and understanding how we can manipulate the opposition defence, and probably something that we're spending a lot more time is when you don't, by not keeping the ball in hand and exploiting that space in the in the backfield, and really trying to manipulate their pendulum and their cover in the backfield,
Right.
trying to get their scrum half into the front line and open up that space for a chip. And that's probably something that I have probably evolved around. I think 2 years ago it was kind of that mentality, like a little bit like Australia. Don't kick the ball away. Just keep the ball in hand. Whereas now we're looking to see, and we probably picked up and did a lot of analysis on the Highlanders and the Hurricanes over the last 2 seasons, and just a variety of the kick pass. So it's not kicking the ball away. It's very different from, I suppose, the Jake White mentality of just kicking the ball as long as you can.
Yeah.
And being able to play opposition territory. We want to be able to exploit and pressure that backfield, but we can do that by running and keeping the ball in hand or run kick. And we're trying to get better at that. So we do a lot of drills. We do a lot of scenarios where we manipulate the backfield or the front line in defence, and hopefully get our decision makers to be able to adapt to that. And then we obviously, the beauty is, we let things flow while we're training, but then by having, obviously everything filmed from different angles, we can get our navigators in the next morning and start to talk through that and see what cues they saw or why they did decide to do something or why they didn't. And then, if it's execution, if it's an execution problem, well, that's just a skill deficit. But if it's a decision making problem, did he understand, what the defense were doing? Also, was it a vision problem? Did they see what the defense were doing? So we found that we've got really good progress in terms of our ability to spot these things, and the players aren't just relying on me to get a message on after 20 minutes through a water carrier that the defense have changed. And obviously that's my job as a coach, to try and give those messages on. But the ideal scenario is my number 10 or my number 9 or my 15 has seen that after 15 minutes, and it doesn't take 5 minutes for me to get that message on.
That's right. All right. Last question before we do our final 4 questions. How do you go about developing professionally? We had Stuart Lyric on the show last episode, and he spoke really highly about how you exemplify lifelong learning. What are some of the things you do to keep developing and keep getting better?
I suppose I read about rugby. I try and listen about rugby. I question people. I suppose I listen to. I'm either spending 1 day a week in the car recruiting, or else if we play away from home, if we play away from home, I'm on a bus, train, or airplane. So I have that opportunity to listen. I suppose to podcasts like yours. I follow a podcast called Finding Mastery with Michael Gervais. Yeah, Sports Coach Radio is another interesting podcast. So while I'm looking at footage, I tend to listen to other sports experts and try and pick up. I read a lot, and we have a very open door policy where there's probably not a week goes by that another coach from within France, from a lower level, from Germany, from Italy, or Southern Hemisphere, they visit us. And then during our off season, I've been lucky enough to spend. I spent a week with the Crusaders, a week with the Chiefs, a week with the Highlanders, a week with the Blues. I spent a week with the Reds, with Hugh McKenzie. I spent a week with the Stormers. I've just been lucky enough, I suppose, to being allowed to go look at other environments and question people. And I've an inquisitive mind, and I've a hell of a long way to go. I wish I was a better coach, and I wish I was a better manager. But I want to try and not have to make as many mistakes as probably a guy with a closed network would make, and he learns from mistakes. I'm trying to fast track and pick up little nuggets of information wherever I can to try and give my players the best environment that we possibly can.
Oh, that's awesome. That's an awesome attitude too, and I think a lot of coaches are doing things like that, and I think the age we're coaching in right now is phenomenal with the resources
Absolutely.
we have. So we've got to tap into them for sure. All right, we always end the show with the same final 4 questions. When you were a kid growing up in Ireland, who was one of your favourite rugby players going around?
My favourite rugby player was Keith Wood.
Yeah.
Obviously, athletically challenged like myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he was just a guy who played with unbelievable passion and a little bit unorthodox. He liked to carry the ball, and I had a similar style. So he was a guy that I looked up to when I was, I suppose, 18, 19, then got a chance to play against him, and then got a chance to play with him. So
Wow.
that was with Ireland. I toured Ireland, South Africa with him with Ireland, and I was involved in quite a few Irish training camps with him. So inspirational guy and a great player. And the player I look up to the moment is Bowden Barrett, just in terms of his all-round skill set, and he just makes the game look so easy. So he's a guy, as I said, we've tried to evolve our ability to play that attacking kick.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a guy who's mastered it. So he's somebody I really enjoy watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though I'm dyed-in-the-wool Wallabies fan, you can't help but enjoy when he just opens up and puts the foot down or does a crossfield kick like you mentioned. It's just a pleasure to watch. All right. What about a high-profile coach that you like watching what they do and get some ideas from?
I love Eddie Jones. I was lucky enough to, when he was coaching Japan, I spent a couple of days with Japan while they were in France, and just seeing him close up and just seeing how strongly he believes in his message. And then obviously he's been able to go to England and play a different type of game, and again just get the best out of players through a no-nonsense style of management. You know, it's interesting hearing him saying how he tells people they're not playing. He just keeps it as short as possible. He doesn't. He just, if they're not meeting his requirements, well, he says spending a half an hour explaining isn't really necessary. He seems to be able to has a ruthless enough edge that he gets the most out of people, yet is incredibly popular and incredibly charismatic. And I really think that the job he's done with England is phenomenal in terms of getting that consistency and making that England squad not rest on their laurels and getting back to having that old kind of arrogance about them. So Eddie Jones is a guy that I would love to be. I would love to be able to watch him in closer action again.
Yeah, no, he comes up often. Probably every second answer is for Eddie Jones. And
yeah, but the thing as well is, I mean, he's had the great thing. I admire is he's had bad days. He shipped 90 points as coach of the Reds. He had to leave Australia, and he didn't lose faith. His self-belief stayed strong, and now he's back on top of the world. And that's, I think, for us, they say, as a professional coach or as a coach, you get hired, you get fired, and I think that unfortunately there's been really good coaches who didn't stay on the circuit and weren't able to recover from a setback. I think if you're in this game long enough, unfortunately, a setback is probably guaranteed. It's just how you react to that and the next step you take. And I think Eddie Jones, he's not like, if he was just always successful, I think it wouldn't be as good a story. And I love the fact that he rebounded from disappointments, but still is at the top of the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right, and then who's last question? Who's a grassroots coach who doesn't have the profile of Eddie Jones that you think's doing really good work in the community?
Yeah, there's a really good guy. He came to visit, contacted me on Twitter about 3 years ago. He was in the Exeter Chiefs Academy, but injury curtailed his career, and he moved to Kenya to work in a private school as a dean and coached a rugby team. And he got involved a little bit with a club side over there. But he contacted me and asked could he come to Grenoble to spend a week. And honestly, I've probably learned more from him than I have from anybody else. And I still often send him, say to him, "Oh, listen, we're playing Toulouse in 3 weeks. Will you have a look at him for me?" And the detail and the analysis he sends me is as good as a lot of coaches who are working in the program. So I just last week, I think he got drafted into the Kenya Sevens as an assistant coach, and he's a guy that he's inquisitive, but he knows the game, and he's working hard to try and try and get into the pro game. And it's a battle because, you know yourself, unfortunately, it's easier for ex pros to get in, and it's not fair. And being ex pro isn't any proof that you're going to be a good coach. But unfortunately, that seems to happen. Whereas he's a guy who's really doing the hard yards, and I believe he's going to be a phenomenal coach.
Yeah, sorry, what was his name?
His name is Will Webster.
Will Webster. Okay, great. I'll definitely look him up, and who knows, get him on the show for a chat. Sounds like he'd be a good one. All right. Well, thanks very much, Bernard, for giving up your time, and wish you all the best with Grenoble's tail end of the season, and really hoping that you get the results you want and that Grenoble's able to stay up in the top 14. And again, thanks very much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us on Twitter at RugbyCoachSCNR or via the website at therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.